Several parents say they're already experiencing challenges with the Gauteng online admission system for grades 1 and 8 for the 2023 academic year. The system officially opened at 8 o'clock this morning, but the parents say that they are unable to access the options of schools. The Gauteng Education Department spokesperson Stephen Mabona has acknowledged that there is a problem with accessing schools. He says they have issues with Google Maps that have added to the challenges this morning. Well, for more on this, I'm joined in studio by SABC News reporter Mahlako Komane. It's so funny because yesterday we listened to the MEC of Education, Panyaza Lucifi, speaking with such massive confidence around the system being ready to go, and they were going to be merging grades 1 and 8, and it was going to be wonderful. Clearly not.
You know, Nompu, you're quite correct. Yesterday, I mean, we did see the department coming out saying it was all systems go, everything is ready. But if you remember correctly, almost every year that we have had the system, there's some sort of technical issues. You'd remember after that case, I think it was, I'm not sure if it went as far as the Constitutional Court with AfriForum, where they had to define those feeder zones. There was also an issue with maps as well in that particular year. There was also 1 year, I think it just crashed, the numbers were too big. But over the years, I think they've tried to improve it. So this year, according to the explanation that we got, was that they had accounted for about 6,000 searches in terms of the Google Maps per minute. They had to then push that to 20,000 because they were reaching at over 10,000 per minute. So hence there was that problem. So then Google Maps switched them off for a bit. They had to then, I suppose, give them more leg room in terms of reaching that 20,000 searches per minute. That's what caused the problem in the morning, because there was one particular lady, as you see on the screen there. This lady had been sitting with the MEC. She was the first person to actually be given somebody to assist her, which would have been the MEC Lisufi. And it took her about an hour and a half plus some minutes to be able to actually get that SMS to say that she had successfully registered, applied for her child. And this was, I think it was quite an emotional, it was traumatic for her emotionally, because this was the first time that she was applying. According to her, her child was going to grade 8. So this was the first time she had an interaction with the system. So not a really good start for those parents that are experiencing this for the very first time. We also did see, as we were tweeting on our social media, that a lot of parents also coming in to complain about that particular, challenge that they were facing in terms of accessing the school. Some were even going as far as saying they weren't able to access the system in its entirety. But the department's official word that they gave us was that the problem was with the maps. That was what they had addressed. But by the time we had left, they said that they had processed or captured over 100,000 applications. I suppose this is also at school choices, but when you narrow it down to individual ID numbers, I suppose, of parents or learners, it would be about over 50,000 parents had accessed the system by the time we left, which was around, this was the update that we got around 11 o'clock or so. I think that number would have probably gone up. No?
So is there confidence that this is merely a glitch on the first day and that things should proceed a bit better going forward?
In terms of the system, Nompu, that's what they were saying, because the MEC had said that he would be, I'd heard him on the phone, I think he was talking to whoever runs the system, and he said that, yes, that client that he had, the parent that he had in the morning, was eventually sorted out. But I heard him saying that, but we need to make sure it's smooth for all parents, because not everybody has the privilege of sitting in front of department officials or MECs. That is the whole process. That is the whole idea behind the system, that it be effective, that parents shouldn't have to leave their homes and travel far to be able to register their child. So it's meant to be efficient, effective, So we're hoping, that's what we got, that they were going to go back to their nerve center and look at that.
Yeah.
But Nompu, having done the story for the years that I've been covering this online system from the launch up until today, what I have noticed, and I think you'll see this as time goes by, is that we're going to have parents coming in, complaining about the spacing, the placement in itself.
I was going to ask you about that, because, they say that, they just live 3 kilometers down the way, but at the end of the day, they get offered a school that's 10 k's away from where they live.
So I did ask about this, because as the system progressed, and this whole system progressed in terms of the online, initially what we had, it was first come, first serve. That's where we were from in terms of the system. And then they zoned it to, you had to meet that home address of, they call it a feeder zone, but there's a home address where you live, which is 5 kilometers. last year, and I suppose this year as well, what they are doing is that, and I think to manage expectations of parents and to make this clear, because I did ask Steve Mabona from the department as to, you know, he spoke about the home, if you go into the system, you'll see there's home address, there's work address, there's that 30-kilometer radius, there's the 5 kilometers, which is, I suppose, within that home address, and there's sibling, right? So those are the criteria that they give. What they then, I think, maybe are not saying to parents fully, and I don't know if parents are either, it's either the message is not filtering down to parents or they're not saying it the way that they should say it, is that what they then do is that if you, Nompu, for example, live 50 meters away from the school, and I as Mahlako live 300 meters away from the school, you are the first preference. So if between me and you, between my 300 meters and your 50 meters, there's 100 other parents and the school can only accommodate 100 children, I'm going to miss out. Hence you see parents coming in and saying, I only live 2 kilometers away from the school, but the school's full. And my child has then been placed, they then throw them to the next school that they can find an opening in. So you find, for example, you know, with those high pressure schools, your Pretoria girls, your Northcliffe High, your Parktown girls, and so forth, you know, schools that are quite popular in terms of the system. That's where you start to see, and you will see this, it's probably going to come. You remember those parents, the Letswalo parents that wanted their child to go to Northcliffe High, but they ended up being given a school, I think it's Ferndale High that they were given, and they didn't want that school because they felt they were closer to Northcliffe High. But that's what happened. There were 500 other parents that were much closer to them, 500 or so parents that were much closer to them in terms of distance, and the wait, then they automatically place you on your waiting list. But what they do and what they're obligated to do constitutionally is to give you a school. It doesn't have to be a school of your choice, but you're going to get a school.
So I think based on what Mahlako is saying, it is advisable for parents to try and get in there as early as possible. Thanks very much, Mahlako. My colleague Mahlako Komane giving us a report on what's happening with the school registration process.